When it comes to freedom, Rob Breakenridge is our man. He joins us now from Calgary to talk about a troubling civil liberties threat in my home province of Alberta. Rob, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ezra.
Now, I endorsed Alison Redford to be the leader of the Tory party, even though she's well to the left of me, because she was so strong on freedom of speech. Rob, she was the only one of the 6 candidates for the leadership of that party that said she would scrap the censorship provision in the Human Rights Act. Well, now comes news that she's talking about removing other civil liberties for folks who drive on Alberta's streets. Can you give us the bad news from Alberta?
Well, the bad news actually comes via BC, and Alison Redford last Friday met with BC's Premier Christy Clark. They met here in Calgary, and afterward, Alison Redford said, gee, we really like what BC has done with their impaired driving law, and we maybe would like to implement the same sort of thing here. So she's dispatched her Justice Minister to look into that. And there was a very serious tragedy over the weekend where 4 teens were killed in northern Alberta, allegedly by a drunk driver. So that's really, I guess, even given this even more impetus. So making it even more likely that they're going to do something. Now, I think you ask most people, Ezra, and they'll say, yeah, absolutely, we need to get tough with drunk driving. But I mean, the Tories have increased penalties federally for impaired driving. There's a lot within our existing system we can do to deal with drunk drivers. The concern about what they're doing in BC is what critics have dubbed roadside justice. Now, let me give you an example. If you get a speeding ticket, you can go to court and appeal a speeding ticket. And it's all done before a judge. You have those legal protections. In BC, if a police officer decides that you refuse to blow into a breathalyzer, you lose your license on the spot for 90 days. You lose your car for 30 days. You entail fines and costs that total into the thousands of dollars. And it's all administered on the spot. If you want to appeal this, you've got to apply to some bureaucratic tribunal. You got to pay to apply to appeal, and they'll decide whether or not you get to appeal. We just had a court ruling in BC. A woman went to court, asked for a judicial review, and the judge savaged this BC legislation, calling it a scheme, a severely flawed scheme, ordered a new trial for the woman because she maintained that she didn't refuse to blow. She said she didn't even have a drink at all, and that she had people who could back up her story. The tribunal refused to hear it. It was just an ugly mess. So very bad timing for Alison Redford in that sense to want to endorse what they're doing in BC.
Rob, that's the thing. I mean, there are drunk drivers out there, and we should throw the book at them, but we believe that there should be a neutral judge who hears both sides of the story before issuing the fines and penalties. And taking someone's license away or their car away for 30 or 90 days isn't just an enormous penalty. I mean, that could devastate someone's employment chances. Let's say you're a mom who drives your kids to and from school. I mean, that is an enormous punitive, I mean, that's almost criminal code style punishment, but there's no trial at all. I mean, that's the weird thing here. It's such a harsh penalty, but you don't actually get a criminal conviction. Am I right?
Well, you don't, and you highlight another big problem with this. First of all, I should also mention that they've had a litany of problems in BC with these breathalyzers, the machines not working and officers not knowing how to work the machines properly, and this is what they're basing innocence or guilt on. Secondly, you're right. Blowing over .08 is a criminal code offense. Refusing to blow into a breathalyzer is a criminal code offense. But what they're doing in BC, they're skipping the courts, just administering this on the spot. So you're getting impaired drivers potentially who are not getting a criminal record. If you move provinces, if you move here to Alberta, you've got a clean record. You don't have any convictions on your record, even if you possibly were driving over the legal limit or really actually did refuse to blow into a breathalyzer. So we've got criminal code provisions that are there to get tough on actual drunk drivers. In BC, they don't have to lay these charges. They just do this on-the-spot justice. So I don't know that we're really punishing the guilty as much as we ought to. And secondly, we're punishing the innocent. And the innocent don't really have much avenues of appeal, as you say, to get around these pretty harsh penalties.
You know, culturally and politically, I'm generally sympathetic with the cops. I mean, they're on the side of law and order, and I sure don't like criminals. But I think more and more our cops are either being politically correctified or turned into tax collectors. And if you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fines on the spot, you've got a real conflict of interest. If there's a police force, well, it can go and grab $1 million off the street right there. I mean, really, at the end of the day, a cop is a unionized bureaucrat with a gun. I mean, that is one way of looking at it. Most of the time, they're on our side fighting against the bad guys. But if they're just on the street grabbing money, dispensing justice and taking your car away without a trial, that's a unionized bureaucrat with a gun. Am I right?
Well, you are. And I mean, when this woman who took the case to court, as she went to the tribunal, and the tribunal bureaucrat said, well, obviously you've got a vested interest in having us believe your story. But you're right. I mean, what about the vested interest of the police in all of this? And we don't look at that side of it. We don't look at the vested interest of the government in all of this. And so the deck is really stacked against the accused. And really that's all they are, is accused. And so the system that pronounces guilt on the spot puts the onus on you to somehow prove your innocence to a board that's stacked against you anyway. They don't really believe what you're saying because they think you've got a vested interest to lie. It really skews what we consider to be justice in this country. And it's unfortunate that Alison Redford feels that maybe this is appropriate for our province.
I'm really surprised to hear, because she's a lawyer, she was the justice minister, and she showed a sensitivity to civil liberties by coming out for freedom of speech in that province. So maybe what it is, Rob, and this is my theory, is that because she is to the left of center on economic issues, maybe she thinks she can balance out her public image by being really showily tough on drunk driving. In stunts. This is really a gimmick in my mind. Do you think this is what this is, a chance for her to prove she's not the left-winger everyone says she is?
I think that's a big part of it. We've seen it before with her. When she was justice minister, they brought in this proceeds of crime legislation, which I get. I mean, look, if people, I don't think people object to taking property away from criminals who got it by ill-gotten means. But the thing with that law is that you didn't even have to be convicted of a crime or even charged with a crime to have your property seized. And again, we run into the same issues on something like that. So we saw it from her as justice minister. I think we're on the verge of seeing it again from her as premier. And I think a lot of it is exactly for those reasons.
Rob Breakenridge, time goes too quickly. Thank you very much. You are a soldier for liberty, and you keep fighting away. We'll have you on really soon. Ezra.